Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film. Thanks for joining us. We opened last Thursday and we run through this Sunday. I am so excited about tonight. One of the things that as we dive into our first virtual festival, one of the things that became possible is the possibility of reaching out to people that we otherwise might not be able to get at our festival. And I reached out to Kevin Williamson early this year to see if he would do a Q&A, and the answer was yes. So I am so very excited to have Kevin Williamson here. Kevin, please welcome to Out on Film.
Oh, hello, hi.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Well, I'm very happy. I'm glad I can. I mean, thanks for asking me. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. Well, first of all, I wanted to ask you a little bit about this insane year we're having. How have you been getting through this year?
Well, like everybody else, I just sit home and I, wear a mask, and I've sat home a lot actually.
Mhm.
I'm really good at isolating. I'm a writer, so we're really good at self-isolating. We're really good at just in a dark room. I don't need sunshine. I don't need anything.
Okay.
So, but after about, I'm over it now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good for a while, and now I'm just ready to move on. I'm ready for this to be over. I'm ready for the world to sort of come back to normalcy, but I think we have probably another year of it.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that the industry is slowly getting to that point where they're shooting, or do you think there's still a little bit of hesitation?
No, I think they're shooting. We're shooting. I mean, I thought they were going to push Scream, and they pushed it for a few weeks, but we're in day 7 right now. So,
Okay. Great.
Shooting, and everyone's wearing masks, and they're just moving on.
Okay. Great. So now you grew up in the South, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I grew up in North Carolina.
Okay.
I was born and raised in North Carolina and spent several years in Texas.
What are your recollections of growing up in the South?
I love the South. I had a really great small town upbringing. It was very rural. It was very picturesque. It was very pretty. I kind of grew up in this little area called Goose Creek. And there was also my mom was from this little town called Oriental, which I based I Know What You Did Last Summer on, because they had the Croker Festival and they had the Croker Green Festival. So I used all of that and put it right into I Know What You Did Last Summer. And so if you've seen that movie, that's kind of what my childhood was.
Okay. So you acted after you graduated from college, you acted a little bit, but Scream was really the project that puts you on the map. Can you talk a little bit about the creation of that and how you got the idea for Scream?
Well, it was my second script that I ever wrote. My first script was Killing Mrs. Tingle, and I set it up at a studio at Interscope. That was my first sale, and nothing happened. It just died on the vine. And Joe Dante was going to direct it.
Okay.
He was the director attached to it, and it never happened. And so then I had an agent, so I thought, well, if I just write another script, they're not sending me out. They're not getting me. I can't get work with just one little sample. So they said, write something else. And so I spent a couple of weeks putting together this outline of this. I'd written this one-act play when I was in college. And it was all about this girl in her apartment talking on the phone to some guy who was, quizzing her and pretending to be right outside her window and was going to kill her. And so it was like a little 40-minute one-act play. And so I had the opening scene. And so I took that and expanded upon it because I had all these other ideas of all these other characters. And I wrote this outline, and then I took off to the desert for 3 days and I just pounded it out.
Okay.
But I had a big outline to go. Everyone's like, how did you write that in 3 days? And well, I had a 22-page outline.
Okay. I mean, in your wildest dream, did you ever imagine that 24 years later, you would be working on Scream 5? Did you have any idea it would be that popular and it would be so iconic?
No, we didn't know. We were making some, we were hoping it would just be good. We were thinking it's just okay. It's just, I thought, well, this will be that movie that, I have on my resume as the movie that started my career and got me an agent. I thought that's what it was going to be. I thought that's what this movie was going to be. So, yeah. And it turned into so much more.
Exactly. I will always remember Scream because I had just moved to Atlanta and literally I was kind of like you, moving boxes and settling in, and I was busy for a while. And I went to see Scream, and I had been sort of out of the loop for a while, and I saw Scream. I didn't know a whole lot about it. And I was sitting down, I was like, oh, Drew Barrymore. And then 10 minutes later, I was like, fuck, Drew Barrymore. I mean, Can you talk a little bit about the idea of having Drew Barrymore headline the film, then have her killed off after 10 minutes or so?
Well, it was always my plan for what I wanted was to have sort of the Janet Leigh
Yeah.
part. I thought, well, if we put a big star in the opening scene, I wrote the scene. Most opening scenes are like 10 pages long. I think this one's like 17, 18. It played like maybe might have been longer in the first cut, but I wanted her to stay alive just long enough that you thought she was the lead and she was going to survive.
Okay.
And so I thought if you just keep it going just longer than it should go, you'll think she's going to live. You really will. And that's what we should. And then I said, then we put the biggest star in it. And at the time, Drew Barrymore had attached herself to play Sydney.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to figure out who would be the bigger star to bring in. And we wanted Alicia Silverstone at one point because she was so big from Clueless. And we just looked at everybody and she wasn't available. And then finally Drew was like, I really like the opening scene the best. I want to play that part. And so we're like, okay. And we were like, are you sure? She was like, yeah. So then we had to find Sydney.
Okay. That certainly, some of the scariest 10, 15 minutes in cinema history. I mean, this is an amazing thing. I mean, I love the entire movie, but that opening sequence is just, I watch it quite frankly, and it still scares the crap out of me. It really does. So
it's a fun scene. It's a very fun scene.
One of the things that I'm a huge horror film myself, and one of the things that always bothers me when I see a horror film is when I'm watching it and 5 minutes in, I know exactly who's going to be around at the end. Was that kind of your approach as well with this?
Well, I did want to follow the conventions of a horror film, and I wanted a final girl, and so I wanted to have fun with the tropes. I wanted to present the tropes, but I also wanted to sort of turn them on their head a little bit.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, I wanted my cake and eat it too. I wanted to sort of send up of the horror film, but at the same time, I wanted it to be a horror film. And I wanted it to be funny, but I also wanted it to be scary. And so trying to find that tone was sort of, I think that was one of the things that Wes was, very vigilant about. And he didn't want it to be overly comedic. And I remember in the cut, he even went back and cut some funny stuff out because he was just like, you know what? This is taking away from the scare. Let's see, we got enough humor in this movie. And he kind of really focused on the scares. I feel like I wanted Sydney to survive at the end. My biggest concern when I was writing it was, am I burying the killer enough? I figured I didn't want people to figure out who the killer was. That was my biggest, again, I thought if I do, because then I'll have failed. And I really wanted sort of that Agatha Christie reveal at the end. And so I thought the best way to do it was to kill him.
Was it hard casting the other roles in the film?
No. When Skeet Ulrich came in, everyone was like, oh, he's the new Johnny Depp. Okay, cast done. Next. And then I think Matthew Lillard just blew us away. Sydney was the hardest role to cast.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the one where we screen tested a lot of people, and there were a lot of actresses that everyone had an opinion. I had an opinion. Bob Weinstein had an opinion. Wes had an opinion. My cousin in North Carolina had an opinion. Everyone had an opinion. And my brother, of all people, it was my brother, goes, what about that girl from Party of Five? And I'm like, who's that? I don't know who you're talking about. I've never seen Party of Five. And he goes, yeah, I don't know her name either. He goes, look it up. And then I looked up her name, and she'd already auditioned.
Okay.
Like, oh, well, let's pull up her. I said, can we bring her back? And they brought her back, and because Wes liked her, and then we had to, just put her on tape, and we had to do a screen test and convince everyone that she was the one.
Great. Can you talk briefly about working with Wes Craven?
I can talk briefly. Wes was like my mentor, and you don't even realize he was I didn't even sort of realize the impact he had in my life until like he died, and then it's just like, I think about him every day. I think every time it's still very raw. It's like one of the reasons I was worried about doing Scream 5 or Scream, whatever they're calling it, is because I just felt like, how do you do this without Wes?
Yeah.
You know, because he was my mentor. He taught me. He gave me advice on the business, advice on, you know, it wasn't just about the techniques of filming and lenses and blocking and framing. And it was really, he also taught me about, well, don't do this in the business and don't do this and don't make the mistakes I made. And he was just very wise. You know, he's a very smart man. And he was very special. And so, you know, and what I love about the new screen is because I said, no, I don't want to be involved. I said, you know what, it's time for a new group of people to come in and just take it and run with it and do something really special. I think that's how you're going to get a really good screen, is if you really just bring in the new blood. But I talked to Jamie Vanderbilt, who's one of the writers on the movie, and he was so nice and so respectful to me and to Wes, and that I said yes. I was like, yeah, I can't say no to you. I want to be a part of this movie. He made me want to be a part of it, and they're doing a really beautiful job. The directors are awesome. From what I've seen so far, I couldn't be happier. You know, it's like the directors are respectful. You know, it's almost like a tribute to us, this movie.
Nice.
So that's what I love about it.
Great. I mean, I adore Scream. And I have to say Scream 2 it is, you know, that'll always have a special place in my heart too, especially because it was filmed 5 minutes from where I live. I can't drive past Agnes Scott without thinking about Scream 2. But what was
every time I've gone to when I was down there, we shot the Vampire Diaries there, and every time we passed Agnes Scott, I'd be like, oh, I just remember I was sitting there, I was there. I just remember being all over that campus.
What was your, I mean, what were some of your recollections of filming the film here?
It was so hot. Oh my God, it was so hot. I remember the heat. I remember how muggy it was, but I got used to it because we kept coming back. I shot the pilot of the following there and all of Vampire Diaries, the originals. It was all shot there. I love shooting in Atlanta. But this college was a beautiful college. It was gorgeous. It still is gorgeous. And the campus is beautiful. I do remember that the flight pattern for the airport, they changed it kind of at so the days we were shooting, there was an airplane flying over every 5 seconds. I remember that was so annoying because we just have to hold the roll for like constant. And it was just, that was a big pain in the butt, but it looked really good. I thought it photographed beautifully on camera. You know, this gorgeous college, and you know, and that big huge sorority house, and it worked out really well. And then we filmed some of like the theater part and stuff we did at UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What do you, in terms of modern day horror films or thrillers, are there any of late that have really impressed you or intrigued you?
Well, Get Out is to me a game changer.
Yeah.
You know, if you're looking at like what the game changers are, that to me, the screenplay for that, I thought was just beautiful and brilliant, and I thought the movie was awesome. And that's probably one of my favorite genre films in the last decade. Yeah, for sure, probably the favorite. And then, you know, there's been a lot. I mean, I love everything James Wan does. I am a huge fan of his. I think I get more and more excited by his movies with every one, because I feel like he infuses it with new technique and new camera work, and I always enjoy watching his films. I think he really knows how to. He's the king of the misdirect, and he can really scare you in a really authentic way, which is not just about jump scares. And he really knows how to scare you. And I love Train to Busan.
Yeah,
I thought that was a fun zombie movie. If we want to start doing subgenres. And James Wan is the king of the ghost films. I thought the zombie movies would be. I really love Train to Busan, and I like a lot of what Blumhouse does with like Insidious, and I love, actually, in some of the comedy horror. I love Happy Death Day. I thought that was a lot of fun. You know, just I thought it was a fun concept, and I thought they pulled it off. And you know, so yeah, there's some movies. I could talk about horror films.
It's the same here. Well, why do you think LGBT fans have embraced your work so much? Well,
I feel like LGBT. I think there's a whole group of. I just did this documentary with my friend Brian Fuller, who's doing a whole documentary about this subject, by the way, and I feel like it's really just The thing is the horror films for the history of all time have sort of been that fringe genre. It's never really truly been respected. It's always sort of been on the outside. It's always sort of been the misfit genre when it comes to Hollywood, and very rarely has a horror film won an Oscar. I think Silence of the Lambs, but depending on who you talk to, people won't even classify that as a horror film. And Get Out, of course, brought some prestige to the genre, but for the most part, and there's no one more of a misfit than a bunch of gay kids. So, for me, I'm speaking from my own experience, but I just sort of feel like I just fell in love with horror films, the terror of it all, and I'm sure a lot of it stems from the way gays are portrayed in horror films, horrifically so. But there's no one better than if you look at sort of historically, the way gays have been presented in horror films and film in general is just horrific and just terrible and bad. And so happy that we're sort of moving beyond all that. But I do think at the time at which some of there were a lot of sort of serial killers or a lot of bad portrayals of gays in those kind of films. And I think that as a kid, I was so thirsty and hungry to see some representation of homosexuality or of that gay culture, that I would accept anything that came my way. And only later did I realize I don't have to accept this. We can change this. We can make this better and proactive, and we can be, we can have a much stronger voice. And by the way, times have changed, but I also think gay kids understand what it's like to be afraid. Exactly. So I think we just latch on to those fears, and it's just, it's an emotion that it's nice when it's not real and it's all fake. And, it's a way it's just like any teenager. I think they love anything that creates big emotions, and horror films create big emotions. Exactly. And and I think, I speaking for myself, I'm very dramatic, and I love to see a lot of big emotions. And I love a roller coaster ride. So.
We were talking earlier, and I didn't realize that my favorite film is your favorite film. Can you talk a little bit about the impact Halloween had on you?
Yeah, I mean, Halloween was the movie. There were two films. It was Halloween and Jaws, but I would say Halloween was the one that cemented what I was going to do in my life, what my purpose was. I was going to make, I wanted to make Halloween. That's what Scream was to me. I set out to make Halloween. I said, I want to do my Halloween. And I went with, that's when I was living in Texas, and I was only I was really young. I forget, maybe 10, 11. It came out when? That's 12, maybe 12. Anyway, let's don't talk age. But I went out, I went with my birthday party, and a dad, and this girl, Shelley Wolf, her birthday, her dad took us all to see Halloween. It was one of those movies where on the news you hear people are fainting in the aisles, it's so scary, people are leaving the theater. And so that alone made it the whole experience even that much more scarier. And so we all went in, and I was terrified. And it was the first time I'd ever seen an audience interactive. And I'd seen people scream at the screen and don't drop the knife, you stupid, pick it up. Everyone, I had never experienced that in a movie theater before, and I loved it. It was just the greatest moment of my life, watching that movie and watching the audience interact with it. And I said, I want to do that. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it.
Oh, great.
So, it had an impact. And so from that moment forward, it was all about, then I started writing horror films, and then I started making horror films in my backyard with a little camera. And I suddenly became, the horror movie geek.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your own process of coming out. How was that?
Coming out? God, it was so long ago. I was a late bloomer, actually. Yeah. I grew up in a small town, and I had sort of a girlfriend all through high school and into college, and she was like she's the Joey to my Dawson, and we grew up on a creek, and and she would bring her boat down and crawl through the window, and we would watch TV all night, and then we became boyfriend and girlfriend, and then it just seemed like natural. That was the natural friend, but I always knew inside I was gay, or I was different, and that I was attracted to men. But in a small town, you just do what you're supposed to do. You follow the norms, societal norms. And then I got to college, and that sort of all changed. And I sort of started, going to, I was in Greenville, I went to ECU, and there was this one gay club called the Paddock Club. And I used to go to that, and I would sneak in and just sort of watch. Side note, it was that I went to college with Sandra Bullock, and she would dance in it. She was always there dancing, and I would be like, oh, she's awesome. And I was like, and I thought, well, that was the first time I'd seen like, awesome drag queens, and she was up there, and she was like this. She was like the backup dancer. She wasn't even like, she was like the backup dancer, this amazing drag queen who would just perform, and she was awesome. And I used to go there, and I thought that was so, and I just loved it. It was I would sneak, I would go party with all my friends, and then I would sneak off to the gay bar by myself. And it was just my little secret. And then I slowly started to meet people who started pulling me out, and I just started changing my life. And I got honest with myself. And by the time I got to LA, I was just, it just sort of was a natural progression. I was slow. It took what it took. I was a small town kid. I struggled through it, but it was, the greatest thing. Being gay is the best thing in the world for me.
Yes, when I look back, I mean, today's technology, you have Grindr and social media.
Oh, yeah.
We had none of that growing up.
Nothing, none of that. We were just like lost on our own. And I mean, do you remember the AOL chat rooms?
Yes.
I didn't even know how to work them. I couldn't even figure out how to navigate them. But it was awful. But now it's so easy, and I feel like we're in a different place. And now when I see all these young kids in high school, and they're coming out of the closet, and it's just, my hat's off to them. It's just a beautiful thing. I'd like to think that you and I had something to do with paving the way for all that. But at the same time, they're doing it on their own, life on their own terms. And I think it's super cool. So.
I'd be remiss without asking you about Dawson's Creek. Can you talk to me a little bit about how that came about for you?
That's kind of how I grew up. That's how I grew up on the water like that. I mean, that's more idyllic than my life was much more sort of the rural, lower end version of that. But it was very picturesque like that. And so I used to film movies in my backyard with my friends, and I wanted to be Steven Spielberg, and I had his posters up all over my room. And after I sold Scream, everyone responded well to the spec script. They thought it was a good read. Yeah. And this is before we ever knew they were going to make it. This is before Wes was attached to it. And so I got all these other meetings based on that one. And so my agent was sending me out on all these other meetings, and this TV producer said, do you have any ideas for television? And I wasn't about to say no. I was like, yes, I do. And he's like, what? And I was like, I had no idea. And I said, well, what? And I started making up on the spot the story of me growing up in a small town, in a small coastal town, wanting to be Steven Spielberg, and in love with the girl down the creek, and from the wrong side of the creek. And so he says, can you come back next week and give me more? And so then I went home, and I figured it out. I didn't know how to write a TV show. I got the pilot for my so-called life. I watched it over and over again. I was like counting the minutes. I was timing the act breaks. I did not know what I was doing. And I just sort of put together the pilot. I went back and pitched it. And then next thing you know, everyone passed on it at Fox. I sold it to Fox, and everyone passed on it. And then the WB originated and came about. And I remember they called it Columbia TriStar at the time. It was the Sony TV. And they said, do you have any scripts lying about that you liked that didn't get made? And they said, yes, it's called Dawson's Creek. And they sent it right over. And they all read it and said, we're making this.
Oh, nice.
And that's the way it all happened. And I thought, up until then, it was a dead project. They just sat on a pile of scripts, and they just passed on it. And the reason they passed on it was because they had Party of Five, and they didn't need another teen show.
Oh, geez.
Which made all the sense in the world. So,
the principals have all moved on to such amazing careers.
Yeah, right. It's awesome, and they're awesome people. And it's just it's really weird how that whole cast came together. It was just really sort of. I still pinch myself because it did. It all just came together beautifully for that one.
Reboots, remakes, for all the other rage these days. Will there be something special coming 2021?
I am not going to lie and tell you that there hasn't been talk about it.
Okay.
There 100% has been. I mean, all the way up to the top of Sony TV. We've discussed it. We've thought about it. It was like, do we do just a reunion, like a 4 or 6 episode reunion? Like, how do we do it? How do you present it? I've talked to James about it. James very much, there was a while where James really wanted to do it. Katie wanted to do it. We never, of course, Michelle's not alive in the show. Jen died, so we didn't really know what to do with her.
Mm-hmm.
And except maybe have her in some flashback scenes or dream sequences or something. But we never really took it past that. We didn't really think it through. We were thinking, okay, what would these people be now? Who would they be as adults? Would they have children? Would they be divorced? Would they not be together? What would their lives be like? Would Dawson be in Hollywood? Where did he make it? Did he lose everything? Is he just, who is he today? And so we thought about it, but we just kind of never really pursued it beyond conversations.
Okay.
Everyone's busy. Everyone's so busy.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about Vampire Diaries.
Vampire Diaries. What do you want to know?
How it came about? What was it like filming in Atlanta?
Well, we shot the pilot in Vancouver,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I did not want to be in Vancouver. It was very rainy. It was very dark, and I feel like when we shot the pilot for Vampire Diaries, every show was filming in Vancouver, so I could literally turn on the TV and go, "That was shot in Vancouver." Turn the channel. That was shot in Vancouver. Because I could recognize everything and the look, and so we went there for the budget because it did have the aesthetic we wanted, but the book was based on a series. The show was based on a series of books, and I hadn't really read them, but Julie, my partner, she read them, and she said, well, the vampires, Damon and Stefan come from the Civil War era. And I went, oh, we need to go to Atlanta. We got to go to Atlanta. And so I made this big pitch about, we didn't have any stories based or nothing. We just made it. We just didn't want to be, we wanted to be in Atlanta. So I said, okay, we need the Civil War look. We need that era. We need the architecture. We got to have Atlanta. And so then when they said yes to Atlanta, I had to come up with the stories for Atlanta. So that's when I started figuring out all the backstory for, Stefan and Catherine and Elena and all, Catherine the doppelganger. I figured it all out once I got to Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, when you weren't filming here, what did you do while you were in Atlanta?
Oh, the entire character, I don't know if you watch the show, but if anyone watched the show, there's Elena, Stefan, and Damon, right? There's the triangle. That was sort of our Dawson, Joey pacing. Okay. And so we had our strong triangle, but then we brought in Catherine, who was the doppelganger from, 100 and however many years ago. And I knew that she had to be this, played by Nina Dobrev, playing both parts. She's Elena and Catherine. And I wanted to make sure Catherine was different from Elena. How do I do that? How do we change her? And I was out jogging one morning, and I was jogging by in Atlanta by the Margaret Mitchell house. And it's sitting right there in that park area, whatever, near the Lowe's where I was staying. And I came across, and I was dying for some water. And I thought, okay, they'll have water inside. And so I went into the museum, and I ended up staying 2 hours. And I was just walking around, reading all about Scarlett O'Hara, reading all about how, she came up with the idea of the New South, the Old South, and how Ashley Wilkes represented the Old South. And I just got so into sort of Scarlett O'Hara that I came back to the writer's room. And I went, Catherine is Scarlett O'Hara. She's Scarlett O'Hara. She's a survivor. She has tenacity. She will, and I used her. I used the character of Scarlett O'Hara to create Catherine.
How great!
That never would have happened had we not been in Atlanta.
Oh, great. What are some things you did in Atlanta when you weren't filming or writing?
Well, we used to go to Lake Lanier and hang out. That was always fun. I don't know. I never went to the big mountain thing that I always saw in the distance. I never went there.
Stone Mountain?
Yeah, I never got there. And mostly, I would just hang with the cast and stuff. I didn't have too many friends down there. I didn't know anybody. So I just sort of, we just hung with the cast, go to restaurants.
Okay. Let's talk briefly about The Following. We were talking about that earlier. I mean, The Following was truly one of the scariest TV shows I've ever seen. What do you think? What made that show work so well?
Well, we filmed the pilot in Atlanta. Then we moved it to New York.
Mm-hmm.
it was, I don't know. The first couple of seasons were, I thought, really emotional, and I thought maybe that's what, you always sort of try to find what is it that you're trying to say about these people, and I know it's a very horrific, horrendous storyline and subject matter. So how can I make it emotional? And I just made sure that all the writers, we just talk about, where are you going to cry? Like, what, cry in a horror show? No, where are you going to cry? You have to. This has to be emotional. And one of the things we were trying to do is tell a story of being middle aged. And I was approaching middle age a lot of, and we're like, what's chapter 2 about? What is your, you have to be, we all reach this point in midlife where we're like, what's chapter 2? What's going to be the next part of our life? How are we going to define ourselves? We're going to die one day and we'll start facing our mortality. And I thought, well, what if you're a serial killer facing your mortality? What if you're a serial killer who's having a midlife crisis? What about that? What would that look like? He failed his first time out as a serial killer. He failed miserably and was thrown in prison. And now he's out and gets to rewrite he gets to write his whole next chapter. What would that look like? So then I said, oh, let's make him an English professor. Oh, let's make him a failed writer. Let's give him a detective that's trying to hunt him down. Oh, the detective's going through a midlife crisis too. He's physically inept. He's been shot down in his prime, and now he's having to deal with being a bit of a loser ex-cop. I just started putting it all together, and it just seemed to work. And the number one reason I think it worked is I think Kevin Bacon and James Purefoy had so much chemistry, it was ridiculous.
Exactly. Tell us about what's behind you.
Oh, that's James Purefoy. I chopped his head off, and it's soaking in formaldehyde. It's the mask that that they wore on the subway in the season 2 opener when they went onto the subway and they killed all the people.
I remember.
And, they were wearing they were acolytes of Joe Carroll, and they were wearing his face. So.
Kevin, what would you say? What are you most proud of in your career?
Oh my gosh, there's so many little moments in my career that may not be the big moments that people might know of my work, but I would say I thought the screenplay for Scream, I'm certainly proud of. I'm very much proud of Dawson's Creek. Mm-hmm. Those first 13 episodes just, I thought were godsend for me. They just were it was just such a beautiful time in my life. So I'm very fond of those. In my later career, directing Helen Mirren was a dream come true. There's nothing, I think about that so often because it was just so much fun and she was so awesome. I love her, and she's everything you think you want. She's everything you want her to be. That's the only way to describe her.
She's just like such a badass.
She is, and she's everything. She's amazing. She's a pretty amazing woman. Yeah. And then I think the season finale of the Vampire Diaries, season 1, mm-hmm. That was a very, very sort of we were very stressed to get that written and filmed, and I was very proud of what we came up with, all the twists and turns, and how we took every storyline from the whole first season and also cultivated. I was very proud of me and the staff and the writing staff for that one, and Tingle. All sorts of little, and this, a lot of my things that I'm most proud of are little moments within all of the stuff. So, I'm
Do you get a lot of Scream fans who come up to you and maybe tell you their conspiracy theories or how this person is involved? Do you get that kind of thing from people?
Yeah, after they tell me they saw Scream when they were 8. Usually the conversation ends there. No, I'm joking. But my friend would say, how come everyone are so happy to tell you they saw Scream when they were 10 years old? I go, I don't know. It makes me feel so good. But it does actually. But yeah, a lot of people, they'll go, so a lot of people want to know which Stu or Billy, which one was where? Mm-hmm. Who killed who? Did Billy kill this one, or did Stu kill that one? Or did they everyone's trying to figure out who was where, when, what, how. And so that's it. And what's so weird is I used to have all those answers, and it's been so long I've forgotten. And so literally it's gotten to the point where someone will ask me a question and I'll Google it. And I'll Google the answer and hope it's right.
That's funny. So what can you tell us about Scream 5?
Well, the new Scream, is I can't tell you anything. I will tell you though, the directors, Radio Silence, they're awesome. I don't know if you saw Ready or Not.
Yeah.
Well, they directed Ready or Not, which was like their first film, or not their first film, but it was like their, I think, first horror film maybe. Anyway, they did it low budget, and I thought it was awesome. I thought it looked really good, and it's one of my favorite horror films of last year. And so I'm very excited about what they're doing. I've seen some of it, and it looks amazing. And I love Jenna Ortega. She's beautiful and phenomenal. She's a terrific actress for being so young, and and I'm so happy that the legacy cast is back. Because I'm glad they all came back, and I don't know. And they're shooting it in Wilmington, where we shot Dawson's Creek, and I know I did last summer. And so I'm going to be headed back that way soon. So.
Oh, great! Congratulations. What are some other projects you're working on?
Oh, we got a lot. We had a movie that was supposed to be filming right now, but COVID sort of sends into the next. We're going to shoot it in the first quarter of next year, because we kept pushing it, and then our director wasn't available until next year. And it's a story about Lilith, who was the mother of all demons.
Okay.
And so it's a really sort of a cool story about Lilith as a ghost, and some, so it's actually it's a very scary movie, and we have that coming down the pike. I've got, I don't know, there's a slew of films. I'm in the middle of writing a slasher, a true throwback slasher film that I kind of want to see, that we're not making anymore. And so I'm writing what I want to see.
Okay.
That's it. And also I'm doing another, I'm working on a lot of stuff. I could just, they're all in different stages.
Okay. Kevin, this has been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for talking to us and your sharing your evening with us. It's been an absolute delight.
Well, thank you for having me.
Sure thing. Appreciate it. Out on Film runs through this Sunday, so please check out the rest of our schedule. Thank you all for joining us tonight.